we will explain you about unit testing, and we will be describing the process of unit testing through PHP unit. First of all, we need to know what is unit testing. So unit testing is a process where application is divided into smaller units and checked whether it's working as intended or not. It's a process followed during the software development cycle to test your application in earlier stage. So moving on to the next slide, we will know why we are doing unit testing. As I mentioned earlier, we break our application into chunk and test whether it's working as intended or not. It's done. So think about a complex system which is composed of several components. If we check a single unit initially and fix that bug in early stage, it's more easier to solve that problem and get into a solution. It's like unit testing makes one unit isolated or function and enables us to test whether it's working fine or not. It breaks the traditional loop of bug fixing, as a developer or someone who is doing unit testing test it giving a failure test. To make it more relevant to you, I will give an example. Suppose you have a function and you are trying to send email. So what you will do, go to browser, hit those link and get it tested that is email sent or not. But through unit testing, you can just write a test function and test whether the email is sent or not. And if not, you can just change the code and run it again. So in this image, you can see that initially we write a test and we run it and make changes if it fails. And if after writing a test, if passes, then we end the test.
Unit testing means the benefits of unit testing. The unit testing has some benefits. So the one benefits of unit testing is it isolates a section of code and validates its correctness. That means unit testing improves code quality. It helps developers to identify the smallest defect that might be present in the units before they go for further testing. The second benefit of unit testing is it helps in identifying and fixing the bugs at the early stage of the software development lifecycle. That means it also helps to identify all kinds of issues with the software at a very early stage, so that software developer can do their work on and fix those issues at the first stage of the development. As a result, when the issues are resolved at an early stage, no other part of the software is impacted, and it leads to increased efficiency and reduced downtime of a software. Another benefits of unit testing is it's reduced the cost as bugs are resolved at the earliest. That means any problems or bugs in the system are identified in the early stage through the unit testing. And because of that, the cost of bug fixes is significantly reduced. If these bugs are discovered later, then it will be much more expensive to fix it. So when the bugs are detected at the later stage of during the development, then they are usually the result of many changes that have already been made to the system. So if the software has already been developed, finding out the exact code that caused these bugs will be a major problem. One more benefits of unit testing is it helps the developers to improve the design by allowing refactoring of the code. So it also helps developers to actually think through the design of the software and what has to be done before they write the code. So these are the benefits of unit testing. Besides these benefits, unit testing have some other benefits also. Like when you add more features to any software, you might need to make changes to the old design and code. And this can be expensive as well as risky. So if you use the unit testing methodology, this can save your time and also can make the whole process much faster and easier. Now I'm going to next slide. Now you have a question in your mind that who performs unit testing. So basically unit testing is mostly done by the development team, but in practical world, due to time crunch or reluctance of developers to test, QA engineers also do this testing. But nowadays we think that unit testing is only done by the QA engineer. So it's totally a wrong thing. It's such a type of testing technique that is usually performed by the developers during the development of a feature. One more thing I want to mention here, unit testing has some tools. So one tool is PHP unit. So today we will discuss about the PHP unit, but this unit testing not only for PHP, but also for other technology also. You can integrate this unit testing for all the other technology also.
So now let's talk about the start of our webinar. That is PHP unit. It's a framework that is built by PHP used for unit testing. As earlier mentioned, unit testing is crucial part of software development. So with an example, I can explain you so that you can relate to more. So think about a WooCommerce or e-commerce site where you need to check whether the total cost calculated after adding to cart is working fine or not. Traditionally, you will go to the browser, add products to cart, and uh, see the calculation and then fix the sum or anything of that calculation, right? But through unit testing, you can make a test case where you can check whether the sum is working fine or not. And also you can make a test on the search product and fix that. So it makes the whole development easier. So moving on to the next slide. So basically, to start with something, you just need to know how to install it. So installing a PHP unit requires the latest version of PHP unit. That is, we are using a 9.5 for the sake of this webinar, and the PHP version we will be using is 7.3, and other extension needed to be enabled during this PHP unit execution. So there are two ways in which you can install PHP unit. One is using Composer and another is using PHP FAR. So the easiest way is to install PHP unit through Composer. Uh, One thing I need to mention that when you install PHP unit through Composer, you are just installing PHP unit for that particular uh, project only. But if you are installing it through FAR, you are installing it globally so that you can enable it from any project you want within your system. So first, I will explain how we will do it using Composer. You will just go to the directory of your project through terminal and just write this command, and then you will find PHP unit installed in your project. Now, on the other hand, if you want to install it globally, you will go to the C directory of your computer, and then you will add the path of it and as environment variable, then download the PHP unit FAR file, which you will get in the documentation and website of PHP unit. Then create a command which will run the script of PHP unit. And then the last step, you need to check whether it's installed or not. You will just verify it through running a command, that is PHPUnit dash dash version. If it gets installed, you will right away know by looking at the screen. You will see that the version is has appeared, that is PHPUnit 9.5.
Now I'll tell you how to write test in PHP unit. So PHP unit has have some basic convention and steps to write the test cases. First step is to do the testing, you have to create one test file and also one class. So to create a test file, you have to follow the naming convention of the test file. So for test file name and class name, for both, you have to add one suffix test as your file name. For example, if your file name and class name is calculator.php, then you have to add one test as suffix like calculator test as your file name and also the class name. Second step is to do the testing, you have to create function. You have to write function. So for function name also, you have to use one prefix as the function name. So if your function name is addition, then in that case, you have to add one prefix test before the addition. So your function name will be test addition. Third step is all the functions should be public. And another step is your test class should be inherited from the PHP unit test case. So these are the basic, rules for the PHP unit testing. So now I'll show you how to do the testing in one of the project. How to do the testing in one of the projects. So due to the time limit, I'll show you this testing from one of my existing project where I already implemented unit testing. So this is one of my calculator project and I already integrated unit testing for this project. So the purpose of my project is it will do the basic mathematical functionality like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And this is the root folder of my project. And this app is the source directory of my project where I kept backend and front-end code. So from this, I want to test this calculator.php. If I open this file, then you can see inside this class, I wrote all the functionality for my project. So I want to test this calculator file. So before going to the testing, we have to do some steps. So the first step is we have to install PHP unit. So either we can install it using Composer or using FAR. As using Composer is very easy to install. So I installed it using the Composer. So for using the Composer, you have to, before installing the PHP unit, you in your project directory, you will get this file only, your project source file and readme file. But if you install it using this composer command, composer required test deb PHP unit, then it will install PHP unit, and after completing the installation, you will find the vendor folder and also the composer file. And then third step is to you have to configure one PHP unit.xml file. So I'll tell you why this PHP unit.xml, this configuration file is needed for doing the testing. So I already created one PHP unit.xml file, and I also wrote some code, did some configuration in this file. So now I'll explain you what is the purpose of these lines of code. So the first line is the version of XML, and configuration file will help you to make sure your test work the way you want. And from line number 2 to line number 11, I wrote one tag, wrote some attribute. Okay, so now I'll tell you what is the purpose of this attribute. So first attribute is would find the location of the script that needs to be executed. So for my project, I want to load the file from the autoload.php. So I just gave the path of the file. Second attribute is backup globals. Backup globals actually related to an annotation that we can make in our source code. So these globals we should try to avoid because it tell PHP unit to handle the values. The global values are variables are maintaining, and it give you the option to restore them. So I'm leaving this as it is. Another attribute is colors. Colors means if you want the console to print out a report of your test, and to do so, you can use colors. So this color will help you more easily identify warnings, notices, errors, and success messages also. So if you want to use these colors, then you just have to set the value true. And another attribute is stop on failure. Stop on failure means it will stop the execution after getting the first error or after getting the first failure. So if you set it as false, then it will not stop after getting the first error or after getting the first failure. So it will execute all other step, all other script as well. So this is about these attributes. This PHP unit have some more other attributes also. So you can use that also. I'll show you the PHP unit documentation later. Another tag I use with that one is test suites. So test suite are made of collection of tests, and one project can have multiple tests. And it's important to make sure that you give each suite a unique name and reference of the proper path to the group of tests. So for my project, I want to test only one file. So I created only one test suite, and inside this test suite, I just told the directory of my test. So I created one test folder, and inside the test folder, I want to test it. So I just here I just told the directory name of my test. So that's all about the XML configuration. Now third step will be you have to create one test folder, and inside that test folder you have to create the file. By using which file you want to test, you have to create that file. So for the file, as I wanted to test this calculator.php, so I created one calculator file for doing the testing, and for file name, I also added the suffix test. Then if I open this file, then you can see I already wrote some code for doing the testing. So here you can see I created one class, and for class name also, I added one suffix test for the class name, and I extended it from the PHPUnit test case. Then inside this class, I wrote one function for the testing, as I wanted to test this function. So first I wanted to test add function. So here I also wrote the add function, and for function name also I added one prefix test, and I made this function as public. Then inside this function, first I created one instance of my calculator class. Yes, my calculator class is inside the app folder. So I just created an instance of this calculator, and then I call the add function using this instance. And this add function needs two parameters, number 1 and number 2. So I sent two parameters inside this function. So this it will calculate, it will call the add function, and will add the number 1 and number 2, and it will return us the output. And in line number 3, I here I used one PHP unit built-in function assert equals. So assert equals means it will compare expected and actual result using this PHP assert function. So here I keep two values. First one is my expected values, what I want to expect, and second one is the actual result. So after running this function, this assert equal, it will compare this expected value with actual result. If expected value match with the actual result, then it will give us the success message. Otherwise, it will give us the error message. So now I'm going to run this test. So for running the PHP unit, you have to, there are some ways to run a PHP unit. Either you can run PHP unit using the file name or using the directory, or if you installed PHP unit globally, then you can directly run PHP unit command. So it will run these test cases. So I wanted to run this test case using my directory. I'm running this unit, and then my directory name is test. And if I run this command, then you will see the test status is okay, and we did one test and one assertion, and it's giving us the success message, means test status is okay. That means there is no error in our function and it's working fine. So now I'm changing my expected value. For example, I just change it to 4, and I'm expecting 4 as my expected result. It doesn't matter what will be the actual result, but I'm expecting 4 as my expected result. So now if I save it and run the command again, okay, now see it's giving us the result should be 4. But here, after doing the calculation, it returning us 3. 1 plus 2 equals to 3. So it's returning us the 3 as actual result and failure. And in that case, we have to check our code and we have to detect where is the actual error. So see, we did one mistake in sending the parameters. We sent 2 parameters, 1 and 2, which will return us the 3. So now here we have to change the parameters. So I'm changing this value 2 plus 2 equals to 4. So I'm changing it to 2, and now I'm running the command again. So it will give us the success message again, as we already solved this issue, as we did one mistake on sending the parameters. So now I'm going to test subtract function also. So subtract function, what will do? It will subtract from number 1 to number 2, and it will return us the output. So I'm removing the comment and I'm running this. Okay, so if we run this command again, so see, we did 2 tests, 2 assertion, and the status is okay, means there is no error in our functions. One more thing I want to show, here if we did one mistake, then I'm changing the values 1, and it will give us 1 failures. And from configuration file, I'm just updating the values, stop on failure values is true. And now I'm running the command again. So see, we wanted to do 2 test cases. One is addition, one is subtraction. But it did only 1 test because we set the stop on failure as true. That means while it get an error, after running this script, on that time script will stop and it will not execute second script. So that is the purpose of these stop and failures. Also, if I change the color true from false, and if I run the PHP unit command again, then you can also see colors gone, and it's very hard to understand that we are getting the failures from this terminal. So that pretty much so by doing this PHP unit, we can do some other functionality testing also. It's not only this basic functions, but also we can do the testing for email validation, file validation, empty string, also password validation we can do. So for that, we have to know about the PHP unit built-in functionality. So PHP unit have one official documentation page. So from there, you can know more about this PHP unit. So if you go to the documentation, then you can see the installation process, then writing the test case rules, other command, and also from the appendix section, you will see you will get some built-in functionality of PHP unit. So you can use that also. That pretty much for this session. Thank you everyone for joining this session.